Hi everybody, it's Richard here again and welcome to another video. And today I have two very special guests. One from Greater Manchester in England, Rob Walker. I hope I got that right. Isn't Oldham in Greater Manchester?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, last time I checked.
And the other from Western Australia and guess where? Australia, Lloyd Boon. Welcome
Hey,
guys. So today we're going to take a look at Paul Weller and we're going to give our 10 favourite singles. Now, this includes the Jam, the Style Council, and Solo. And as I was saying to Lloyd just before we went on air, Paul Weller has had 108 different singles, with my count anyway. It could have been a couple more, a couple less. 72 solos, 18 with the Style Council, and 18 with the Jam. Now, I look at myself as a heavyweight Jam fan. I look at myself as like a middleweight Style Council fan. I look at myself as a bit of a lightweight when it comes to the Paul Weller solo. So, what are you guys' thoughts on Paul Weller and how did you get into him briefly? Lloyd, we'll start with you.
me to go first. The Jam were never big in Australia. That's Entertainment made the lower reaches of the chart. A town called Malice did the same, beat Surrender, and that was about it. He didn't take off until really 1984 with Shout to the Top in Australia. Boy Who Cried Wolf was a top 10 or top 15 hit out here, which wasn't released in the UK. You guys had Come to Milton Keynes instead. But so I've already been a fan since about Town Called Malice period. And then I went back looking at the Jam after that. But I was a big Style Council fan and then dropped off when they sort of went off. And Paul Weller's my number one as a solo artist.
Rob.
Yeah, so my favourite band of all time are the Jam. I love the Style Council in the 80s, and I do like Paul Weller as a solo artist. There's obviously a massive difference, which, for me anyway, between the Jam and Paul Weller as a solo artist. That doesn't mean there aren't solo stuff by Paul Weller that I rate very highly, and likewise Style Council. But the way I got into the Jam really in '78, I became aware of them, and then I remember riding around on my bike with a radio fastened to the handlebars and hearing When You're Young in '79, which was like my favourite year for music. Oh. And I heard Paul Weller being interviewed on Newsbeat, and after that, they sort of took off with Eaton Rifles and 3 years of major success. So very, very important to me. Very, very. Paul Weller's, biggest musical person in my life. So obviously, I've never ranked Paul Weller's work on a video or anything like that. I'm not really much of a ranker, so I'll leave that to the experts. But yeah, Richard invited me to do this, so yeah, it's not easy though. This is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll go first and then we'll go clockwise. So me, Rob, and then Lloyd, if you're happy enough with that.
Yeah.
So my number 10, and I don't actually have the single, and it's actually a Paul Weller solo one that gets in, and it's from this album here, and it's Above the Clouds. And the reason why I love that song, it sounds like the Style Council at their peak. It's got a real summery feel to it. His voice isn't quite as gruff with some of his solo work. It sounds more like the Style Council. And I just think it's an absolutely gorgeous song. Didn't do too well. I think it got to about 30 something or 40 something. But yeah, from his debut album in 1992, I'm going with Above the Clouds.
Yeah, that's one of my favourite Paul Weller tracks.
Yeah.
As you say, it's got that Style Council feel. His voice is excellent on it, and yeah, it does remind you of the Style Council.
So, do you want to go next, Rob?
Yeah. So my number 10 is I think it's from '78. So it's on this double A side, Bombing Water Street. So when I listened to the Jam, when I went to see him in '82. When you go to a Jam concert, you're not sat with your feet up. It was pretty aggressive. It's very much like being in a football crowd. And when I listen to a lot of the Jam songs, I get very aggressive. And when I listen to this song, it's an absolute from the beginning to the end. It's non-stop, And like all these records by the Jam, you can put them at number 10, you can put them at number 1. Today, it's number 10. It's an absolute classic. I've always loved it, and it's a bomb in Water Street.
It's probably one of the most pogo songs you could ever listen to for bouncing up and down. It's absolutely brilliant. I totally agree with you. So, Lloyd.
So me, okay, we'll start off with, I decided to go 3 Jam, 3 Weller, 3 Style Council, and I flipped the coin and got a 4th Paul Weller in my top 10, just to even it out. Because you could have 9 Jam singles in your top 10 straight out, you know what I mean? Totally. And everyone would be satisfied with that. So I tried to even it out. But at number 10, I've got Peacock Suit from Heavy Soul.
Oh, right, okay.
I think that's absolutely brilliant. The whole riff of it is, it's dad rock at its finest, in my opinion. It's got to be played loud, and it's even better live than it was recorded in the studio. And I love the end of it, where it's got a bit of a drive my car type feel. Beep beep, yeah, but it's Peacock Suit, yeah. It's got that Beatle vibe happening as well. It's just a great rock song. So that's my number 10. And that could have ended anywhere in my top 10, actually, that one. So,
Peacock Suit, that was a time in the UK where Paul Weller was getting pretty successful with his singles. If I'm not, I think that was definitely top 10. Yeah. And he had a bit of I think that's off Heavy Soul, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the opening lead off track, isn't it? I think.
Yeah. So it's always been one of my favourites as well, Lloyd.
And it's a great album. It's just a rock album, Heavy Soul. Total rock,
Some other good singles off that album as well, like Friday Street and so forth. Well, my number 9, it is The Jam, and it's Strange Town. And this is from 1979, and it's arguably their best year for singles. And I love the lyrics to it, but I think it's got a little bit of, you probably disagree here, there's a little bit of a ska feel to that song. And I know it was on the Setting Sun's American version, and I don't think it actually fits because I think the rest of the songs are harder. This one, there's almost like a little bit of a ska feel to it. And I just think it's absolutely brilliant. The live version that he did in '82 at the Bingley Hall, that wasn't the concert you were at, was it, Rob?
Yeah. No, I think there was one earlier.
It's absolutely fantastic, the live version. They opened it up with that. Unfortunately, it wasn't shown on TV. They came in on the second song, but you can get it on YouTube. And I just think it's an absolute blinding track. Again, a non-album single and fantastic, and a brilliant B-side as well with the Butterfly Collector. So Strange Town gets my number 9.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched Lloyd's video recently where he was ranking Jam singles, A-sides and B-sides. On a couple of occasions, Lloyd was commenting on the standard of Paul Weller's songwriting when he was, he was only just out of being a teenager. And songs like Strange Town and Butterfly Collector, just, use the word amazing, just fantastic songs. And that was just on the cusp of when the singles were always getting in sort of the lower echelons of the top 20 until they had, obviously I spoke earlier about Eton Rifles, but great single, Strange Town. Right, so my number 9, Richard, is and Lloyd, is the debut single, In the City.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to debut singles, it takes some beating. 77, there was so many out of the punk movement. Were the Jam punk? Probably they weren't punk, but they were around during that time. And just the look of the band, the sound of the single, just a magical first single. Mm-hmm. And I've always loved it. I actually like it more now than I used to like it. It's sort of grown for me. And fantastic debut. My number 9, In the City.
Yeah, great song. And they even nicked the Sex Pistols nicked the riff of it for the
Yeah,
whole song. It's a great song as well, by the way.
yeah.
Right, Lloyd.
Right, my number 9 is Life of the Top People's Health Farm from 1989, Confessions of a Pop Group album. The reason I picked this is that I don't think Paul Weller bettered the way he wrote this song when it comes to the satirical look at working class England. Like,
Mhm.
he had the same sort of vibe as Pete Townsend and Ray Davies was doing, looking at working class England. And I think he really did that well on this one about they all want what they haven't got, sort of thing. And I think it works really well. Maybe it shouldn't have been a single. I think there's better songs on that album, but I think it works lyrically and satirically in every way. So that's why I've picked this one. It's quintessentially English. That's the phrase. I
Yeah.
think with the lyrics.
I think that album was a great album. I really do. It's the most underrated of all the Style Council albums, and some fantastic songs off it. So there is. But no,
There
good
are.
choice.
Yeah, I've always liked that track, Lloyd.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
Right.
I thought I was going to be in for some stick for all these things.
No.
Yeah. Well, my number 8 is Speak Like a Child, the first Style Council single. And the reason I'm picking this is that it's not such a great departure from the Jam, because, I was heartbroken when the Jam broke up. But when I heard this, I thought it's not that much different. Okay, there's plenty of horns, and you got plenty of horns in the Gift album. But this is catchy as hell. It's a fantastic debut single. Now, the next one after this was completely different, although you could say it was quite similar to Precious in a way. But this here, and I love the video. I love them going around in the open top bus, and Tracy Young, who I always loved. I had a crush on her. Girl Next Door sort of crush.
Yep.
And I just thought it was an absolutely brilliant single. It was a great way to introduce the Style Council, and it gets my number 8.
Yeah, I mean, the Style Council singles. I know you did a video, Richard. It's very difficult to rank them because the quality was so high. I can remember, like you say, I can remember when that came out, and it was. I think if Money Go Round had come out as its first single, I wouldn't have been surprised though, because that was a big departure. Like you say, with a similar sort of groove to Precious, but it was a great debut single, wasn't it?
Fantastic. I loved it. It was the spring of 1983, and life was wonderful at that time as a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
So
Right. Okay. Right. So my number 8, I'm going to choose an album track.
that's fine.
So when I was 21, so Paul Weller for me. So I think there's 4 things when I was 21 that were important: football, music, women or girls, and politics. So Paul Weller was pretty political, and my sort of political ideals, were they formed because of Paul Weller? I don't think so, but it certainly helped. And this album, Our Favourite Shop, is very political from the opening track, Homebreakers. So the track I've chosen off here is A Man of Great Promise. And the thing with the Style Council, I spoke before, said, the singles were great, but there were other tracks on their albums that they didn't choose as singles. It could have been massive. And one of them is A Man of Great Promise. It's a great song from an album that I really do rate. This is sort of like the manifesto of 1985 for me. We had what was going on at Green and Common, etc. I mean, I went on marches for CND, and I'm a submarine engineer. So try and add that up. But yeah, I love this album, and I also really love the track A Man of Great Promise. So that's my number 8.
That song should have been a single. I'm sorry, but I know Australia got Boy Who Cried Wolf, and we got Come to Milton Keynes. But A Man of Great Promise was screaming out to be the second single after Walls Come Tumbling Down. So, no, good choice. Okay, Lloyd.
So was Luck. Luck was a great single song. Should have been a single.
I agree.
really should have, even if it was a double A side with Man of Great Promise, it
Yeah,
should have been
yeah,
on an
brilliant.
EP or
Yeah,
something,
excellent.
Brilliant. Anyway, number 8, I've got When You're Young. It's the first jam song I've picked simply because of the message, the lyrical message. And that's how I like a lot of my Paul Weller, the lyrical message. And it's the message to youth that, these are the best days of your life. Do what you've got to do because, it's going to grind to a halt as soon as you get a job, get a house, get a car, get married. The world is your oyster, your future's a clam, basically. That sums up the whole song. And it was a brilliant video as well. It was in like a gazebo type thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, on a bandstand. Yeah,
Kids run, yeah, and all the kids running around, and it was brilliant.
Yeah.
The video summed up the song. It was a great song.
Yeah,
so that's why I picked that one.
Yeah, it's very optimistic, isn't it? That song.
It is.
I love that line. Is it used to fall in love with everyone? I just love those. Paul Weller was a master at that time. His lyrics were just, as I said before, his lyrics were like second to none, really. But as you said, Ray Davies-esque, if you like. But always been a favourite of mine when you're young. A great B-side as well.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Although I still think the B-side should have been on the album, and the album version of the B-side should have been the B-side.
Yeah.
So, but that's just me. Give me a bit of a cough here. Right, my number 7 has already been mentioned. That's In the City. And Rob said it all. It's really, really exciting song. I love the guitar riff. I remember this when it was out. I wasn't that keen on it. I always preferred the second single, All Around the World. But In the City, the guitar riff, as I say, nicked by Steve Jones for Holidays in the Sun. But absolutely brilliant track. Really, really brilliant track. And it's guess my number 7, as you said it all before.
So my number 7 is another Style Council single. And I've got I thought I'd show this sort of hits of the Style Council. So it's a very nice cover, this one. So it's the track My Ever Changing Moods.
Okay.
So I did a video with my son recently. I brainwashed him into loving that song as well. I know it appeared on Cafe Blur, slowed down version, but it took a new life when it's got speeded up a little bit. I don't think Richard's a fan of the video where they're on bikes riding around, but that's got cryptic messages in it as well in the video. I think it was directed by the guy Tim Pope, maybe, who directed the Cure videos. But yeah, I've always loved My Ever Changing Moods. I went to see the Style Council 3 times, I think it was, 3 or 4 times. It's a bit cloudy, and I was never one of those people who kept ticket stubs, etc. But they were great live as well. But again, it had a political vibe when you went to see them. Outside there'd be people handing you leaflets, Red Wedge, etc., which was something Paul Weller was heavily involved with the Style Council. But I don't think Paul Weller was as comfortable talking about politics as he was about sort of writing. He never went on Question Time like Billy Bragg. He kind of kept his counsel. But back to the music, My Ever Changing Moods is my number 7. And I thought I'd show this hits album. And it's got a really nice jacket.
Great choice. I have to ask you, whenever you saw them live, was Tracy Young part of the show and any of the concerts?
No.
That's awesome. I'm not as jealous.
No. No.
Right, Lloyd.
He was part of the show when I saw it at the Oxford Apollo in October 1984 when I went back to England for a holiday.
Right.
She did a little solo set because of her album was coming out around then.
Right.
She'd had a couple of singles out, and then she was part of his back-end singer thing as well.
Lucky man.
I did go to see Style Council. They were at a CND rally, and I think she might have been at that, so that might annoy Richard. But people were throwing mud at Paul Weller, so he had that white Mac on. It was pretty funny, really.
Yep. All right, we'll get on to it now. My number 7 is Town Called Malice. That was the first real jam song that really got a lot of airplay here in Australia. So it was the first one I took notice of. I loved it because of its Motown sound. Parents had already got me into Motown several years before that when I was about 11, I think. And yeah, I just love the whole Motown vibe. Another thing, Paul Weller, I like the way he has real negative, dark lyrics in his songs, but really uplifting music. And he did that with Our Favorite Shop. Basically, the whole album was very dark and deep and dour and somber, and yet the music was so soulful and uplifting and almost danceable at times.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I like about Paul Weller, just the way he can do that in a song. You think you're listening to something really positive, but then you really listen to it and it's not.
Yeah.
No, great choice. And also, I think it was the first time since the Beatles that two tracks by the one band were played in Top of the Pops. And I remember that night as well. I couldn't believe it because they played
Yeah.
Malice and then they went out with Precious as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it was Day Tripper and We Can Work It Out by the Beatles in 1965 or something like that. But
Yeah,
right.
I mean, sorry, just the Town Called Malice is one of those songs that if you go to a wedding or go to someone, especially if you went to someone's 60th, if any guy between 50 and 60, the Jam is usually one of the favourite bands. Jam, Madness, bands like that. Town Called Malice is a song that has aged really well, I think.
It has. And
Yeah.
the weird thing is, whenever it was released on 12-inch, it was released as a live version rather than the studio version.
Yeah.
And I have a real soft spot for the live version as well.
Yeah.
You don't get the same sort of keyboards on it. It's more guitar heavy, which I always like. Right. Well, Rob, you're stealing my thunder all the time here because my number 6 is My Ever-Changing Moods from 1984, the Style Council. I remember seeing this live on, I think it might have been Switch, the program, before the actual song came out. I couldn't believe it. I thought this is absolutely brilliant. And this is before Cafe Blue came out, and I thought, oh man, this is going to be the best LP ever. And I was slightly disappointed. But yeah, this is great. And the 12-inch is even better because there's an extra verse. It's longer.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of the piano version, so I'm not. I just don't like it. I think you have to have the full band with the horns, and the little horn section in the middle is just so uplifting. It's so good, and it gets my number 6.
Okay, so my number 6 is Going Underground, with the fantastic, amazing B-side or double A side, Dreams of Children, which I obviously love. But we're talking about Going Underground. So again, very sort of its time. This was just before I left school. So I left school in May 1980. I think this hit number 1 maybe in March, something like that. So I had a little bit of time because I used to go around to my friend's house at lunchtime playing Undertones records and things like that and burning fish fingers. So, and Going Underground, we used to listen to the chart because it used to be on a Tuesday about at lunchtime. And I can remember us listening, waiting, and it's obviously before the days of the internet, I don't think we could even fax then. But yeah, it got rumoured, whether it was in the press, etc., that it was going to go straight in at number 1. And it was the first number 1 by the Jam. So to go straight in, I know these days it isn't such a big thing, but at the time you had to sell a lot of copies to get to number 1, and fully deserved. Always absolutely love Going Underground.
Brilliant choice, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, great song. I'm not keen on Dreams of Children though. I've never really liked that song.
I know that's why.
Why?
That's why I mentioned it.
That's why I said it, because I know you don't like it.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so my number 6, I have solo single, Brand New Start. Was a standalone single, but it was featured on his Modern Classics Greatest Hits album. I love the country sound of it. It's got slide guitar. It's a mournful lament about, picking yourself up after you're depressed and down, whether it's a relationship breaking up or something. You've got to get back on your feet and move forward.
Yeah.
I like the way Paul Weller does that with his songs. He's very personal, so you know what he's going through in his personal life leading up to a record being released, because
Yeah.
he tends to write about it and, I don't know, self-analyze himself in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
sometimes harshly as well. But I just love this song. It's just like nothing else he's ever done. It's really country, the slightest guitar. It's just great single. I don't think it sold very well though, did it? Only got to number 45 or something, didn't it, in the
Yeah.
UK?
Yeah.
Really wasn't a big hit.
I've heard Paul Weller. He's kind of, I do like watch interviews of quite a bit, obsessive when it comes to Paul, obviously, over the years. So YouTube's great because you can find these clips. And he said that he doesn't like saying "I love you" in a love song. He finds a way of sort of interpreting the message not in a clever way. It's just the way he writes. But I agree, that's the great sort of single. One of his sort of Paul Weller. Once we sort of got towards the latter part of the 90s, single sales seemed to sort of dwindle. The album success maintained. Still getting number one albums, but maybe people just weren't going out buying singles anymore.
That was written to promote the Modern Classics album, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So that was the enticement to buy the LP.
Yeah.
Okay, my number 5, and it is the Style Council, and it's A Solid Bond in Your Heart. It's their 4th single. This was slated to be the last Jam single, but Beat Surrender won out. And I'm glad Beat Surrender won out, even though I prefer Solid Bond in Your Heart. I don't think the Jam would have done it as justice as the Style Council, because I think the Style Council version is absolutely brilliant. Now, I have heard the demo, so I can't really say that that's how it would actually have turned out for the Jam. But that piano at the start and the video is brilliant. Going back in time to the old dance halls and all the rest of it, and nobody turns up, but it's absolutely fantastic. And this, as I say, was the 4th single, released in 1983, the one before My Ever Changing Moods. Everything was looking brilliant for the Style Council, and it gets my number 5.
Yeah, that video where I always remember he turned up on the scooter and then sort of just left it on its side.
He did. He just let it fly. He just jumped off it.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I had a couple of scooters, and that was part of my sort of during the week and at weekends riding around on my scooter. So to see Paul Weller on a video riding around on a scooter, that was great. I always liked the single. It was just one of many great sort of Style Council singles.
Okay, Rob, you're next.
Yeah, so my number 5. So this is so difficult, as I said, and I sort of admire Lloyd in a way, sort of sharing things out. But, when I'm asked to do my 10 favourite Paul Weller Style Council, I've got to choose the songs that are my favourites. And number 5 is Down in a Tube Station at Midnight. Now, on another day, this is number 1. But this was the start, after Paul Weller had a little bit of a, whether it's hearsay or not, a bit of writer's block, the album got shelved and they re-recorded it, etc. Just the start of the Jam being what they became, which were, the greatest band in the UK, my favourite band ever. And this single, when you ask Jam fans, what's your favourite single? This one will get mentioned. I can guarantee it. So, yeah, always loved it. Like the album version as well, but the single version, I loved it as well because Tony Blackburn didn't like it. He tried to ban it. Didn't like the subject matter, Mr. Squeaky Clean. But, yeah, always loved Down in the Tube Station at Midnight. Feels wrong to put it at number 5, but the other 4 at the moment I do favour. So yeah, number 5.
Great choice. I'll come back to it.
Okay, so my favourite Jam single of all time, cringeworthy, I know, the bitterest pill I ever had to swallow. It's the last Jam song in my list. It's absolutely brilliant. because I was into the soul thing, and then Town Called Malice with its Motown. Then he went even more blue-eyed soul with this. It was just a dream come true for me that he was now developing into a soul singer or blue-eyed white boy soul singer. You know, it was just brilliant. And then he developed that further as he went into the Style Council. So you could see the changes that were happening. And I don't think Rick Butler and Bruce could have carried on. I really think they struggled, especially with all the other songs on, you know, the Beat Surrender double EP, where they were like 6 tracks or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I felt like they really struggled and were out of their element with things like War and Stoned Out of My Mind and Shopping. I think they were out. They were being left behind, like Andrew Ridgeley was with George Michael. You know, once it come to Careless Whisper and things like that, they couldn't keep up with Paul Weller. So he had to disband the Jam. He had to go forward.
This is why I love doing videos like this, because somebody will choose, the one person in the universe will choose The Bitterest Pill as a favourite sort of Jam single. So I'm really proud to do this video with you, Lloyd, because you are that person in the universe. So yeah, I'm privileged to be on a video with you, my friend.
You look at the B-side. The B-side really does show the way to the Style Council.
Yeah.
Pity poor Alfie.
Pity poor Alfie, yeah.
Okay, my number 4, and it's the one that really launched them into the stratosphere, and it's the Eaton Rifles. And again, it's from 1979. Got to number 3 in the charts. Absolutely brilliant, catchy as hell. Love it. Is it the best track off Setting Suns? I don't know. That album is just so damn good. But you could understand how it got in the top 3. It's so catchy and absolutely brilliant, and a real rousing chorus as well. So that gets my number 3.
Yeah, I mean, that was a bit of a shock when it got to number 3. It was a bit like it was like someone having a video, and then you wake up in the morning, it's got 10,000 views, and you normally only get 300. Because I don't know what went on there for it to suddenly catapult itself into the top 3. But yeah, it was one of those things that, you know, when you were a kid and you, like I said before, riding around on your bike and, you know, eating trifles and things like that, you know, I've always loved it.
Okay.
So my number 4, I'm cheating because I've had a couple of album tracks. So depending on what day of the week is, this is my favourite Jam album. Some days it's Sound Effects, but the track, my number 4 is going to be Mr. Clean. So again, one of those tracks you think could have been a single. The Jam they really loved producing singles that were on albums. Obviously, people are aware of Paul Weller's love of the Beatles, and the Beatles used to do that as well. But sometimes, if there was 4 or 5 singles off an album, people would be like, oh, this is a great album. But because there's not as many sort of singles on it, when you look at it, you've got Tube Station and you've got a double A side. That's it. And you've got tracks like It's Too Bad and To Be Someone and All My Cons. But Mr. In the Crowd as well. I was close to choosing that. Because when I went to see the Jam, that was the first one. That was the opening track. So you're in amongst the crowd with, I think there was about 12 of us. After the song, you're on your own. It wasn't until the end of the gig. But yeah, Mr. Clean, sort of, you wake up in your Mr. Clean, a piece of toast from the one you love most, and you leave. You know, this, again, harking back to that sort of Ray Davies sort of style of writing. And this album just knocks the socks off the previous album. And it's just a great album. And Mr. Clean has always been one of my favourite Jam songs. They performed it live as well when I went to see them. So I had to include it in my top 10. So yeah, Mr. Clean from All My Cons.
Great choice. Brilliant album. It's my favourite.
Great album. I used to have that album signed by all 3 members of the Jam, and I lent it to a friend 1985, 86, and I never got it back. Never got it back.
Wow.
Never got it back. Such a disappointment. Yeah. Anyway, my number 4, It's Written in the Stars. Paul Weller solo single. I just love the way that it's got that loopy brass thing that sort of goes through the whole song.
Yeah,
And it's one of those songs that you were saying, Rob, that he never says "I love you" in the song. You know,
yeah,
we're hopelessly informed that we're meant. We're conscious of the fact we're supposed to be so sure. We're driven by the rain to act. I mean,
yeah,
he's saying "I love you" without saying "I love you." It's just
yeah,
brilliant wordplay.
yeah, yeah,
It's just brilliant. It should have sold a lot more. When I first heard it, I actually thought this was going to get to #1 in the UK. I thought it would be his first #1 single, but I
yeah,
think it stalled at maybe number just outside the top 10. I think,
yeah,
or did it just make the top 10?
yeah. It
It was
was,
such a disappointment.
yeah,
You know, I thought it was going to be his #1 solo single.
yeah. It was very radio friendly, wasn't it? That I know.
Was
I had a girlfriend 10 years ago, and she didn't really know much about Paul Weller, and he introduced her to Paul Weller, and she became a massive fan. But then when she broke up, she said she couldn't listen to him anymore, and she really liked that song, and that was one that sort of we used to really enjoy. So it's one that I sort of don't listen to that often, but it's a great song. I really do. And it's like I say, you've been a bit fairer on this. You sort of including Paul Weller's Style Council, etc. And I do really enjoy Paul Weller's solo work, but up against some of his other work, I just can't put it in the top 10. But yeah, it's a great single.
No,
yeah,
good choice.
great single.
Well, my number 3, and it's the other single from 1979, so I've included them all. And it's When You're Young. I know, Lloyd, you have included this. This is just so much energy. It's unbelievable. Um, it's rousing. The video is great as well. I don't think this is as catchy. I can understand this only getting to number 15. I think it was 15 or
Yeah,
14, around that time.
yeah,
Beating Rifles, I thought was more mainstream for everybody. But this one,
yeah,
once this one sinks in, this is
yeah,
absolutely brilliant. And the
yeah,
energy, say, is just it's over the top, an absolutely classic single. I love that sleeve as well, by the way.
yeah.
But yeah, When You're Young is my number 3.
But
Right. So we're in the top.
weren't they three great singles in 1979 there? Eaton Rifles, that one, and Strangetown.
Yeah,
It
Yeah,
was a bang, bang, bang trilogy of just classic, wasn't
yeah.
it? Classic post-punk songs.
yeah, yeah. That was sort of the bedrock, wasn't it, of the success they had a little bit, sort of in 1980, 81, 82. Those singles were sort of the start of their sort of major success, if you like. So I've got my number 3 is my only Paul Weller solo, and it's Wildwood, the song Wildwood. So I do love the debut, but when this came out, it for me it was just on another level. The debut album did sort of have that. A lot of the tracks had that Style Council feel to me, whereas this was different. I mean, at the time I wasn't aware of people like Nick Drake, but I suppose you can sort of make a comparison to some degree. But he did a live version, which is fantastic as well, of this sort of period. And there's a lot of tracks on this album that I could have chosen, but I've gone for the single Wildwood. It's just one of those songs that every time I play it, just puts me in a really, calm mood. I just love it. It's Paul Weller at his best. So, and how different can you get, from a bomb in Water Street to Wildwood? So, yeah, my number 3 is Wildwood.
Yeah, great choice. And that was like the bedrock for the success with Stanley Road as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Was. Well, you say from, going from the Jam to Wildwood, how about Moon on Your Pajamas from that album?
Yeah,
He
yeah,
writes
yeah.
some lullaby, I mean, it's like incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
The way he can write songs. Absolutely brilliant. Anyway, number 3 on my list, I have My Ever Changing Moods. I can't find the single. This is the American Geffen album, which I'll be doing a video on this soon, comparing the
Yeah.
tracks from Cafe Bleu and this one. and how I think they differ. But yeah, my Change of Moods, as you guys have already said, you know, just that guitar work and the whole sound and vibe. It was so summery, wasn't it? It was a
Yeah.
summery, uplifting song with, again, with deep, dark lyrics.
Yeah.
It was just, I remember hearing that when I first bought the 12-inch single, and I took it home and played it. It was like, this is the sound the Style Council were made for. This is Weller's sound. Just that whole guitar sound, you know. And he carried that right through the Cost of Loving album, didn't he? Right through that sort of sound of guitar.
Yeah.
Not that the songs were that good on the Cost of Loving album, but you know,
Hey.
just that sound. He carried on with that sound for 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah. We've spoken about that. It's one that we've all chosen, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, but I actually do prefer the piano version, the album version, because you can hear the lyrics a lot clearer than you can the full band album version. And I think it needs to be heard, some of those lyrics.
Yeah.
They're some of the finest lyrics he's ever written, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a great song.
So it is. So, yes, that's my number 3.
Well, my number 2, and I think Rob will know my 1 and 2, maybe not in the right order, but my number 2 is Going Underground. Number 1 hit single, 1980, straight in at number 1, absolutely fantastic. And didn't he wear, was it the Heinz Baked Beans apron whenever he performed this?
Yeah.
I remember this. I thought it was actually very good.
I know, yeah.
But funny enough, around this time, although I wasn't a Jam fan, I always thought it was Bruce Foxton was the leader of the band, the other guy that played the bass.
Right, yeah.
But I didn't realise. But I absolutely love it. Loved it then as well. Around the same time, I think the Vapors Turning Japanese came out. So some really, really good tracks in the charts at that time. And thoroughly, absolutely love it. And I do like The Dreams of Children as well. But I always got it as a B-side, not a double A side.
Yeah. Yeah. So my number 2 is That's Entertainment. So again, similar to Tube Station, it's one that is quite predictable. Has it been overplayed? Again, it wasn't really even a single. Is that an import? It got to 20, 21 or 26 in the charts. Paul Weller wrote it apparently after he'd been out and wrote it in no time at all. The lyrics have got, you know, you disappear into the lyrics, don't you? And they've got a magic about them. Again, from sort of 79 after Setting Suns, when Sound Effects came out, that Sound Effects album had a little bit of a different feel to it. It was a progression. I really do like Sound Effects. But for me, this is Paul Weller sort of, he's lyrically at his best. And again, it's one of those that, you know, if you ask a man in the corner shop, what's your favourite Jam single? Quite a lot of them are going to mention That's Entertainment. So it had to be in my top 10, and it's my number 2.
Excellent choice.
Okay, my number 2, I've got Above the Clouds. This isn't the actual single. This is from the Modern Classic 7-inch box set that he released. So you get 4 tracks on each single. Yeah, I just, again, lyrically, it's got all the frailties of turmoil happening in his life. He had no confidence after the Jam split up. So he's got all that going on in his head. Is he good enough? Can he do it again? And it's got them jazzy, bluesy, blue-eyed soul overtones of, as you guys said, the Style Council in their best years, you know. So he's still trying to get away from the Style Council, but he's not at the same time. So it's a lot of struggles in that song. And it's just my favourite Paul Weller solo single of all time. It's just absolutely brilliant. And it sums up the whole album as well, the self-titled album, lyrically and musically to me. Just a great, great song. And I'd actually never seen the video until about 3 days ago when I found it on YouTube. So that was just a big eye-opener for me, you know, seeing the video for it. So, yeah, just great.
I know you two have both chose that. I was very, very close to putting it in my top 10. I always love that line when you're afraid of living, but scared of living, but afraid to die. I always love that line, you know. And there's a video, like a Paul Weller video, sort of going through his sort of that period of time And at the end of the video, it's Paul Weller with, I think it's with DC Lee. They're buying a coffee or something, maybe in Amsterdam or in France. And it's on the radio above the clouds, and he's kind of listening to how it sounds. And he's, just hearing how it sounds with just on the radio, and, his face is like, yeah, it sounds really good. It's always been one of my favorites. As I say, very, very close to putting it in my top 10. So it'd be classed as a bubbling under for me.
Absolutely.
That's actually the highlights and hang-ups DVD.
That's right, yeah.
VHS, isn't it? Highlights and
yeah.
hang-ups, yeah. Yeah, it's actually a heartbreaking moment at the end there where they're buying a coffee because their marriage is shut over.
Yeah.
It's whether he's trying to rekindle it or not, buying a coffee and spending time with her or what.
Yeah.
And then the lyrics in the song as well. It's amazing to find out what's going through his head.
Yeah.
At that time.
Okay, we'll get to our number ones. My number one is no surprise. It's Down the Tube Station at Midnight. Ask any Jam fan, and this is obviously going to be number one for quite a few of them. The thing I like about this is I remember whenever I was 16 years old in 1982, and our RE teacher asked us to tape a song and bring it in, play it to the class, and talk about it. And somebody brought in Paradise by the Dashboard Light, which he turned off halfway through. And I think he put the guy on detention for bringing it in. And I brought in Tube Station, and he played the whole thing, and he read out the lyrics. I wrote every single lyric out. He read it out, thought this was really good. And then he said, he's an old guy. He says, are the Jam still going? I said, yes, they're number one at the moment with a song called Town Called Malice. So that must have been March 1982. And I was so proud as anything because everybody's going, yeah, great. No, it's my number one. I think he was apparently suffering from writer's block, and Bruce Foxton, I believe, tried to help him out with tracks like The Night and Innocent Man and things like that, and they were crap. And, but obviously once that was written, I think that was him on his way. Brilliant. So Down Tube Station at Midnight is my number one.
Right. So my number one is Funeral Pyre.
Oh, right. Okay.
Ooh. So, if you listen to this, the group as the Jam, the bass line, the drumming, for me, it's unlike any other Jam single, really, any other Jam song. It was in a period in 81 where they didn't release an album. Adam and the Ants were top of the charts, and this came out. I played it. When I got this, the neighbours were banging on the wall for me to turn it down. I was playing it that loud. You have to play it loud. It's all. I did my favourite singles from 81 at some point, and I had this as number one. So it's not a track it's not one that everybody sort of thinks about initially. But if you put this on, you can't help but, groove with it. To me, it's my favourite Paul Weller, Style Council, Jam song, Funeral Pyre. So that's my number one.
Oh, good choice. I really like that as well.
I've got a friend who's got 15 cars, and he's got Snap in every car. So it don't matter what car he drives, he listens to the Jam, and he always plays Funeral Pyre at top volume. So, and I've been in all 15 cars. So,
good choice.
Follow that, Lloyd.
Well, it's not Beat Surrender, I can tell you that. My number one single is Speak Like a Child. Simple as that. It was the song that really got me into Paul Weller as a big fan. We knew, obviously, I've mentioned before, we knew who the Jam were in Australia, but they really weren't big. But the minute you hear the horns and everything going at the beginning of this song, and the organ sound, it was not like anything else that was in the charts at the time. It was joyous, It was uplifting.
Yeah.
And, I was 16 at the time, I think. And it was all about, the exuberance of youth and, being so positive in life. And it just stuck with me, and it always has, just absolutely brilliant song. And it was just a breath of fresh air. The video was brilliant. that was unlike everything else in the charts at the time because you had Duran Duran with all their naked girls and all that crap in their videos, And
Yeah.
all you saw was a band in a windswept hills, It was just brilliant, so bleak,
Yeah.
but the video was bleak, but the song was so uplifting.
Yeah.
And it gets you when you're 16 years old,
Yeah. Yeah. I love it as well.
Stuck with me ever since.
Yeah.
Choice.
I've got it here. So.
Yeah.
Okay, those are our top 10. I'm just going to quickly show you 3 bubbling unders for me. And I've picked one from each period. And the one from the Jam is A Bomb on Murder Street that Rob had. Fantastic pogo song. The one for the Style Council is Walls Come Tumbling Down. Very political, which I'm not a big fan of political songs, but the song is so damn good that, it gets in there. And the Paul Weller song is Sunflower from Wildwood, which I think is an absolute classic. And I think he tried to copy this a few times because the Changing Man's not that too dissimilar to it, and even Peacock Suit or Suit, but I really those are my 3.
Yeah, doing this video though, it kind of, do you feel as though Paul Weller is underappreciated? When people talk about songwriters, etc. We can go out, do our top 10. You could do a top 100. Do you think he is underappreciated?
I do, yes. I think the Style Council are underappreciated. I don't think the Jam are because I think people have caught on to the Jam. The one thing I will say about Paul Weller is he's turned into a bit of a Van Morrison. In fact, he's releasing albums every other week, which I don't think is doing him that a lot of good, to be quite honest with you. And although I haven't heard those latest albums, the last one I bought was the one that he did a cover, he did a song about David Bowie on it. It was an acoustic one. I remember you slated it, Rob, that you didn't like it at all. But I think the more that he actually releases, I think his stature diminishes, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, so sometimes less is more, isn't it? I don't know whether he's got anyone by his side saying, give that a break. I don't know what Lloyd's view is on later Paul Weller stuff. Lloyd?
I think he's very hit or miss over the last 15 years, his solo material. There's some absolute bangers on his albums, but then there's a load of crap that just should never have. It wouldn't even be a B-side of a Style Council or a Jam song. You know what I mean? That's how bad it is, some of the stuff. But then again, he's trying to be very eclectic at the same time. He's trying to be David Bowie with a different image or a different sound on every album. And like David Bowie, it didn't work sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It didn't work, but it worked on another level, and you go back to appreciate it. And I'm starting to do that with some of his solo albums over the last 15 years, like Sonic Kicks. I couldn't stand it. It would probably be number 2 on my rankings of Paul Weller solo albums now. But he is certainly underappreciated, especially worldwide, because he's still not really known. He's big in Japan. He's got a bit of a cult following in the US and down here, but he's not really on the radio like he should be with his hits. People only seem to know Shout to the Top and maybe Town Called Malice out here, or You're the Best Thing. That's all he's really known for. And there's a hell of a lot more to Paul Weller than You're the Best Thing.
Yeah, exactly.
There really is. But
so
I'll just go through my.
I've got my bubbling unders.
Okay, sorry.
Right, so talking about recent Paul Weller, so I've got on Sunset. So a track on here, the title track on Sunset is very Style Council summary vibe to it. Got a really good video where he's driving around in a car in America. It's got a really nice vibe to it. On this album, there's a few tracks that, I do not like at all, but there's some tracks that I really do like. So, but on Sunset, it's definitely sort of worth mentioning. So, again, another album that gets ridiculed by certain people is this masterpiece. So, The Cost of Loving. So I could have chose countless tracks from this album, but I've decided to go with one of Richard's favourites, Heavens Above. which it, how I didn't choose it in the top 5, it just must be because it's a Saturday. Maybe I'm a bit grumpy on a Saturday. If it was a Sunday, it might have been my number 1. So I absolutely love Heavens Above. And I love the video as well. I'm a big fan of windmills. So anybody stood with a white jacket on next to a windmill is a 10 out of 10. So yeah, Heavens Above. And then something else. Let's choose Tales of the Riverbank, which was a B-side to Absolute Beginners, which is, you know, I think I was watching Lloyd's video recently, and he mentioned that song, the songwriting on there for someone of, you know, early 20s is, and how that is a B-side is unbelievable. So yeah, certainly worth a mention. And it's on this Snap album. If you've got 15 cars, then this is in every glove box. So yeah, Snap and Tales of the Riverbank. Those are my 3.
Well, I totally agree with Tales of the Riverbank. I won't agree with Heavens Above.
And my 5 bubbling unders, I've got Strange Town.
Brilliant.
Absolutely love that single. I have Walls Come Tumbling Down. That could have almost been a jam song. It had the angst and punk vibe. It could have almost been a jam song, that one. I've got You Do Something to Me from Stanley Road. And my partner Lynn would be so disappointed if I didn't mention Broken Stones as well. That's her favourite Paul Weller song of all time.
Yeah, classic.
And my 5th one is Long Hot Summer. So you've either got Long Hot Summer single or you've got the Parry EP from the UK. So that's my 5 bubbling unders.
Those are all good.
And getting back to the Cost of Loving quickly, my favourite song on there is Waiting, believe it or not.
Yeah, that's great.
Terrible single.
Yeah. I feel
It should
guilty
not have been released as a single.
I love all those tracks that you've just shown, Lloyd. You know, they're all brilliant records, you know. So if I've not chosen one of those, then it's not any slight. It's just the quality is so high, isn't it?
It is. It is. Like I said to Richard earlier, you know, you could have picked 9 jam singles in your top 10. Or the first 9 Style Council singles, basically, you know. Yeah. Really, you could have, theoretically, you could have done it and you would have been happy with it. Which is why I went for 333 and random pick.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's been good.
That was great fun. I thoroughly enjoyed that. So I want to thank the 2 of you for coming along. And Lloyd, I know you've work early tomorrow morning, so you'll be hitting the sack pretty soon, I think. So
another half hour, yep.
Okay, folks, that's me for now. And I just want to thank Lloyd and Rob again. And I hope to have another video quite soon. All the best now. Bye-bye.
Hey, guys.